5 Camino favourites, that's the topic for this week. 5 favourite places, people, things that I came across on my very first Camino, coming right up. It's always so difficult talking about Camino favourites because every aspect of the Camino is wonderful, every place is wonderful, you meet so many wonderful people, but I thought it might be interesting to, this could end up as a series of 5s, but talk about 5 Camino favourites in terms of places, people and all kinds of stuff, things that I remember. So here's my first attempt at doing 5, and this relates to the Camino Frances that I walked first. So it would have to be day 1 out of Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And hey, you know, the Camino Frances doesn't start in Saint-Jean, but a lot of people do start there. You can start your Camino anywhere you like, but if you are starting in Saint-Jean, that first day is really special. Not only is the town of Saint-Jean a beautiful old town, that sense of, you know, putting your first foot on the Camino, starting out, having you know, quite a strenuous day, heading up the Pyrenees, but the excitement of it and the energy, I mean, it's just unforgettable. So I've started out of Saint-Jean twice, and both times, you know, it was a sensational moment. So that would actually have to be up there amongst my favourites. My second one is also a place, and I would have to say it's the Cruz de Ferro. So again, depending on where you're sort of starting and finishing your Camino, the Cruz de Ferro is like 2 days from Astorga. So generally people will walk from Astorga to Rabanal or maybe up to Fonthreverdun, and then the next day is when you hit the Cruz de Ferro, the Iron Cross, which I think is actually the highest point on the Camino, so it's a bit of a climb to get up there. But yeah, that's got to be one of the big moments on the Camino Frances for me. And in fact, if I'm going to walk the Via de la Plata next time, I'm actually going to do that bit again, I think. How does that work? Yes, I can. So I'm going to come up the Via de la Plata to Astorga. I'm then going to go through Rabanal, Cruz de Ferro, down to Molina-Seca to Ponferrada, and then head off on a different route, but I want to have the experience of the Cruz de Ferro again. Both times that 3 times I've walked over past the Cruz de Ferro, I like to start out really early, so I tend to stay in Fonthreverdun, which is only, a kilometre and a half or something prior to the Cruz de Ferro, and start out at dawn. Why do I do that? Because I love that peace of the dawn, you know, just as it's getting light, and there tends to be less people around because really it's only the group in Fonthreverdun who are going to be at the Cruz de Ferro at that time. Others are coming up from Rabanal and from further afield, and I just love, you know, that degree of solitude if you can get some, because it's such a special moment. And if you're not sure what the Cruz de Ferro is, it's the Iron Cross, which is on top of the mountains there near Fonthreverdun. And it's traditionally where pilgrims will drop a stone representing sort of burdens in their life and sort of unburden themselves and say the Pilgrim's Prayer. It's a very moving moment, and I really love that place. So yeah, number 2 would be the Cruz de Ferro. Number 3, you might think it's a little bit odd, but meeting David Vidal. Now you may be wondering, who the heck is David Vidal? I know some of you watching will know who David Vidal is. David is a Spanish guy who, I forget how many years ago now, 10, 15 years ago, walked the Camino and decided he would sort of devote his life to helping pilgrims. And he lives literally on the Camino in a sort of ramshackle shed lean-to place. And he provides a little donativo food and drink stand. He provides fresh fruit and things like that, and people just leave a donation. And I think he goes into Astorga most days to sort of replenish the fruit and so on. Why do I love staying there? I'm going to digress with a very quick story, because my wife Pat, who joined me on my last Camino, she can be a bit cynical, and she's, oh, what's this David Vidal stuff all about? And I said, well, look, you just kind of see what you think when you get there. And so you come up this little rolling hill, and it's got his little sign there, Casa de la, my pronunciation of this is terrible, Casa de los Dioses, which is the house of the gods. And then you'll see his sort of fruit stand, and there's always lots of pilgrims milling around, getting refreshment and having a chat with him. Just spending time with David and talking to him, he's oh, look, I know he hates these terms. He doesn't like to be thought of as a spiritual guide or any sort of a guide, but he has a wonderful philosophy of life. And just to sit and chat with him for a while about, what's important in life and things like that. He's such a wonderful guy. And really just oozes, sort of love and wisdom to all the pilgrims who pass by. So, if you've got that choice coming out of Hospital de Orbigo to Astorga, you can go straight along the road, or you can take the right-hand route up through these lovely rolling hills. That's where David Vidal is. I would say go up there and drop in on David. I found meeting him was a highlight on my first Camino. And, to get back to my cynical wife, Pat, what did she think? It was really hilarious watching her, because as she sort of came up and David was there, chopping fruit and chatting with people, and she kind of took her pack off and kind of, okay, what's all this about? And she had a bit of a refreshment, and she sat and chatted with David, and had a photograph taken with David. And as we sort of packed up to leave, she said, "There's something very special about this place, isn't there?" And she couldn't put a finger on it, And I can't remember whether she said there's something very special about him or this place, but she sensed it, absolutely. So, yeah. Drop in and see David Vidal. That's certainly, one of the, I don't know, call it a highlight, that's a bit crass, but, one of the moments that I will always remember on Caminos. What's my fourth favourite thing to remember? You couldn't remember Caminos without remembering your fellow pilgrims, because that can be a huge part of the experience, the different people that you meet from all over the world and different walks of life. And occasionally you'll meet someone, and this happens more if you're walking on your own. If you're walking with somebody, you've kind of got your own company to a degree, and certainly we find that we don't engage so much with other pilgrims when we're walking together, my wife and I. On my very first Camino, I walked on my own, and you tend to interact more, I find, if you're walking on your own. And somebody made that first Camino very memorable for me, and I will change names to protect the innocent, but Maria, if you're watching this, I was very lucky to meet Maria coming out of Pamplona, and we walked off and on together for about a week or so. And it was just one of these Camino relationships where you immediately just click with someone, and you talk about everything under the sun, and you know each other's life story within an hour or so, and just enjoy each other's company. And we would sort of meet up along the path each day. We was generally staying in different accommodation or even different towns, but we'd say, see you on the path the next day, and we'd try to meet up again and continue the conversation. And that was a really joyous part of my Camino, just to meet, someone that you really connect and click with and can enjoy the journey with. Sadly, it only lasted a week because we were walking at very different paces, and there was, Maria was walking on a planned sort of trip with all the accommodation booked and things, and our schedules just didn't work out in the end. But that was certainly a memorable part of my first Camino. And then I was tossing up, what should I add for the fifth favourite thing on the Camino? This is my first five, I'll come up with some more. It's got to be the Meseta. There is so much talked about online about the Meseta, and I hear people say, oh, it's boring and it's flat and it's desolate, and there's nowhere to stop for coffee, and you hear first-time pilgrims saying, oh, should I bus around the Meseta? Should I hire a bike to get across the Meseta? The Meseta for me is probably one of the best parts of the Camino Frances, and I know lots of people love it. Why do I say that? The landscape on the Camino does vary a little bit. And you've got the mountains of the Pyrenees in the beginning, you've got, sort of rolling landscapes. You've got the beautiful eucalypt forests of Galicia towards the end. The Meseta is its own landscape again. You know, it's a very high plateau in that middle part of northern Spain. I think it's about 1,000 meters high, this sort of plateau. It is sort of fairly windswept, so you're not walking through forests or anything like that. It's a fairly open landscape. And as a result of that, you get these huge skies. And on the Meseta, it's not so much about the landscape, it's the skyscape. And it's just a wonderful change. And I think because the landscape is you know, somewhat flatter and a bit desolate, it opens your mind up a little bit more, and you're not distracted as much. And you know, some of your best thinking, I think, happens on the Meseta. The landscape's still stunning. I mean, I'd much rather be there than sitting here at home in Sydney. But it's different. Yeah, you know, if you're walking it in very hot weather, there's not a lot of shade and things like that. And people get hung up about the Meseta. I don't know why. It's such a beautiful section. And some wonderful towns through there as well. So yeah, the Meseta would be one of my favourite aspects of the Camino. So there we go. 5 favourites. I hope that's of interest. What sort of favourite memories do you have of walking a Camino, particularly your first one? I think the first Camino is always so much more impactful, inspiring. You know, I mean, they're always good, but that first one I think can be a much greater impact on us, and perhaps a surprise to a degree. So what were some of your favourite things, moments, people on your Caminos? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.